Hello, dear friends. Here we are. Another day, another blessed opportunity to learn with Emmanuel. We're so thankful and joyful that you have joined us in this journey. Please make sure to subscribe and like and share so that others can benefit from our studies as well. We are granted by God the opportunity today of studying one of the message, or parts of the message from the book Words of Life Eternal, that Emmanuel titled In the Problems of Material Possessions, or in the Realms of Material Possessions. So today we're going to examine what should we do when faced with material things. We are, after all, material beings, right? In a sense, we are spiritual beings living a material experience. We are multi-dimensional. Spirit, perispirit, physical body, the ones who are incarnated, even the perispirit is semi-material. So when we return to the earth, for whatever time we are granted to be here, we need physical things in order to exist. And to a certain extent, having the physical things make our lives much easier, right? Money may not buy happiness, but does buy comfort, and comfort is something that a planet of trials and expiations have us seek. So today, this message starts with a quote from the Apostle Paul in his first letter to Timothy, chapter 6, verse 7. Quote, "For we brought nothing into this world, and it's certain that we can carry nothing out." So here Paul, 2,000 years ago, was reminding us that we come with nothing and we live with nothing, in a sense that we come with a very spiritual body. We are loaned our mother's womb in order to grow inside and mold, right? We're loaned the nutrients from her, and we mold our physical body based on our spiritual body that is commanded by the Spirit's mind. Andrea Luiz, Evolution into Worlds book. Yet, we are born naked. We are born with nothing but the ability to exist, right? So, Paul is reminding us that we don't carry anything out to the spirit world. So he comments, Emmanuel comments by saying, "Do not imprison your spirit in attachment to the temporary possessions of the material world, which often amount to no more than shadows hardened around the heart." So he says, do not imprison yourself. Of course, we bless the physical things that grant us this life. For example, the microphone I'm using, the camera I'm using, the computer, the internet. These are all physical improvements of this planet that we have as humankind developed and make us life easier. But he says, do not imprison our spirits into the attachment of temporary possessions. Yes, we may accumulate wealth, but one day we'll leave and the wealth will be behind everything that we worked so hard to. He says, observe the misfortune of those who have chained themselves to the passions of possession, especially within the realms of affection and feeling. Right? So not only we may be possessive of material things, but we may be possessive of people. We may think they're the only ones that belong to us, and vice versa. He says, many were not content with their own ruin and turned others into victims of the madness to which they surrendered. So let's talk about this. We can be misers, right? We can accumulate and not give, because physical things are just a talent. Let's say the parable of the talents. When God gives you so much, much will be asked of you. Especially if you think about people in this world who are accumulating so much that others don't have. Of course, they have the merit, they may enjoy their physical possessions, but we are asking, why is God giving me all of these? So we want to think about also being possessive of our affections. And Emmanuel is going to bring us a comment. He says, they, the people, the spirits, the incarnate beings, believe themselves owners of the people they loved. And at the First signs of independence shown by those individuals, they did not hesitate to strike them down with deadly violence, right? Let's think about this. How many parents believe themselves owners of their children, right? Children are loans from God. There's a whole chapter in the Gospel according to Spiritism, if I'm not mistaken, chapter 14, that talks about parenthood. So we need to go read. Those are spirits. They're under our guardianship for this lifetime. So we are not owners of those we love. We're not owners of our husbands, wives, parents, loved ones, children, no one. So we need to let them be who they are and be independent. They consider themselves absolute proprietors of passing wealth and transform the tears of orphans and widows into chains of hungers and bonds of death. Throughout history, we see the subjugation of other nations, the subjugation of one nation by the other, one people by the other, where we hoard the wealth, right? And then there are tears all over us. And that those things will come to join us in the afterlife, where our conscience will say, what did I do with the talents? Why did I hoard the wealth? And many accounts in the spiritual literature of spirits were bound to their physical bodies after their discarnation because they were worried about their coffers, right? So let's not do that. It says, they overestimated their own resources, blinded by the megalomania of misused power, increased around themselves the dangers of ignorance and the practice of cruelty. Those who think that they're more than others, right? This movement around the world to concentrate power and wealth around the few to subjugate the many. And that's not the law of society. The law of society dictates that my talents complement yours and yours complement mine. And we are here to help one another. Even though wealth and poverty are experiences of the spirit, that doesn't mean we look at the poor and say, oh, this is your reincarnatory plan. We go and help, because if we have, it's certain that we have more than enough that we can give to others. They imagine themselves sole masters of authority and strengthened the empire of violence. Many examples throughout the world where nations went and conquered others, created an empire of violence that can only be maintained when we punish others for trying to be independent. What happens when we discarnate? Emmanuel says, yet all of them, those who are proprietors of passing wealth, those who consider proprietors of their loved ones, those who thought of themselves more than others, they said all of them dominated by pride, that's the root cause, awake and bewildered and unhappy amid the darkness they had accumulated within themselves, facing immense labor for their own liberation. Where do they awake? In the afterlife, right? After a while, we are allowed to stagnate. We are allowed to incur more debts because God and the superior spirits respect our free will. And then when they respect our free will, they allow us to do things. But over time, there will be a time for reckoning. It says, use, and then what do we do not to be the ones awakened in the afterlife, realizing that we are bewildered by what happened and unhappy because we caused unhappiness and suffering into others. Emmanuel says, use the opportunities of life without presuming ownership over what God has merely entrusted to you. Everything, our house, our cars, our jobs, our families, our spiritual centers, our activities are all entrusted to us. And just as in the parable of the talents, we will be asked, what did you do with the knowledge I gave you? What did you do with the blessed Spiritist doctrine that you granted the opportunity to know of in this life? What did you do with all the resources that you were able to accumulate? It says, whatever temporary advantage may brighten your path among humanity, remember with the Apostle Paul that reincarnated spirits bring no material possessions in this world into this world, and it's evident they can take none of them when they leave. So let's use appropriately the resources that God has granted us, but let's not abuse it. So today, dear friends, we are reminded of the importance of being careful with everything that God has entrusted to us. And we carefully prepare these presentations every other day, a few times a week, so that we can meditate on the importance of these teachings, so that we can learn with Emmanuel and that we can be grateful for his teachings to all of us. May you stay well, and may God grant us many more meetings. See you next time. Bye-bye.